Hey, you. You're finally awake.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. We all love going to the movies. Although Hollywood recently has taken a big hit, the movies are still a place of wonder. And after that, video games were always going to get on it to try and get some cash. So today we're looking at 10 NES movie games that you might have played and you should give a look to. With this list, it's not a top 10, it's just 10 games I'm throwing at you, so you need to let me know whether you think these are good or bad, or there's ones I need to talk about and I've not mentioned here. As always, if you do think I deserve it, please hit the like and subscribe button as well as a notification bell to be let know when new videos come up. We've also got the weekly podcast and we've got a $1 a month Patreon and the link in the description below. Right, let's get into it, shall we? 10 NES movie games. The Goonies 2. Yes, the Goonies 2. Was there a Goonies 2 movie? I don't think there was. No, there wasn't, although one is in the works apparently. But this was actually a follow-up to the Japan-only Goonies Famicom game. Now, instead of closely following the film, it kind of expands the universe and gives a new storyline. The Fratelli family has returned and kidnapped the Goonies once again, along with a completely new character, a mermaid named Annie. You play as Mikey, who's the unofficial leader of the group, and explore a sprawling underground network of caves, bases, and secret tunnels to save everybody. Yeah, considering it was an NES title, it's pretty big. Like, you've got multiple themed areas like icy caverns, fiery tunnels, waterfall chambers, abandoned hideouts, pirate-inspired zones, and they're all linked through doors and warp points and hidden paths. Yeah, exactly like the film. Now, most of the exploration happens in traditional side-scrolling platforming segments. Like, Mikey moves pretty quickly, and he's quite responsive, and he has to take on loads of enemies, including skeletons, ghosts, bats, and Fratelli's henchmen. Again, this happened in the movie? You start with basic kicks, but eventually find a variety of weapons: the yo-yo for close combat, the slingshot for range attack, bombs for breaking walls, and powerful items like the boomerang or fire-based weapons. Which is hilarious. Again, why not just make an action-adventure game just for shits and giggles? Well, did this happen in the film? I don't care, just do it. Now, at certain times, the gameplay shifts into a first-person adventure room mode. Okay, fine, but here you got to use the commands like look, hit, use, and take while examining stationary rooms. These areas are filled with hidden items, NPC appearances, and clues, but this is where a lot of the confusion came from these moments. Like, important tools like the ladder, the hammer, and glasses are often tucked behind obscure actions, such as repeatedly punching a wall, but you need to do this to actually finish the game. A lot of the problem with this game came from the backtracking or remembering where certain hints were, so you had to revisit areas after collecting new game. They're trying to do a Metroidvania, for God's sake. And that's the problem, the game rarely tells you where to go. But despite this confusing design, The Goonies 2 is actually praised for its charm and the ambition it actually attempts. The overall atmosphere, you could argue, had nothing to do with the video games, but it had a good sense of discovery, and for players who like their exploration-driven games, this was pretty decent. Gremlins 2, The New Batch. Now, I love the 1990 film Gremlins 2, The New Batch. I prefer it much more than the first one, although I think I was scared of the first when I was a kid. Bear in mind I was only 4 years old, but the second one is absolutely hilarious. Now, whilst the movie is a mix of comedy, chaos, and slapstick humour, the NES adaptation transformed the concept into a tightly designed action game. Now, the story's pretty much straightforward. After the Gremlins overrun Clamp Tower, Gizmo arms himself with improvised weapons like a matchstick bow, paperclip arrows, and later more powerful gear to escape each floor and destroy the Gremlin horde. The plot is minimal, but the game captures the spirit of the film, recognisable enemies, boss characters, and the playful personality of the Mogwai hero. Like, I do love Gizmo, he's such a cool little character, although to be fair, I love the Gremlins so much more. The Gremlins are awesome. The game uses a tilted top-down perspective that gives the sense of levels depth and complexity. Gizmo can only walk in 4 directions. This was the NES back in the day, and he has to avoid hazards, jump, and fire weapons, and it's got pretty good controls. Each stage is filled with conveyor belts, moving and shrinking platforms, electrical traps, because that happens in a building. Now, the isometric layout adds the challenge, because navigating diagonally and judging jumps takes practice, but it also gives the game a distinct identity. Going through each layer of the skyscraper has you going through different places. You've got the office, the storage areas, before making your way to the cafeteria, laboratories, TV studios, data centers, and even bizarre environmental zones. Of course we have. Like every few levels, Gizmo's got to take on a major gremlin boss. These fights act as set pieces, breaking up the standard gameplay with quite unique patterns to memorise. There's the Spider Gremlin, Mohawk, Striped Gremlin form, and other mutated all appear as challenging boss fights. But necessarily were they all in the film? Nah, that's for you to argue. The graphics themselves are bright, detailed, and full of personalities, and again, for an NES game, this is really decent. But despite this is not an easy game. The diagonal perspective, tight platforming, tricky enemy placement, and occasional instant death pit require focus and practice. But you should also say that each level is designed carefully, every hazard is placed deliberately, every platform has a purpose, and they're not trying to screw you over here. It has gained the reputation as one of the best movie tie-ins on the system. It does respect the source material it's coming from because you necessarily can't replicate Gremlins 2, you've got to do it in some way. Overall, Gremlins 2, the new batch from the NES, is quite a good little game. It's a challenging little action platformer that's quite fun. Yeah, it does expand the movie's world, it does it in a fun way, probably a bit more than the Goonies does. But even today, it remains to stand out how you actually adapt a film into a great video game. Friday the 13th. Now, I know, we have had problems with Friday the 13th in the past. Now, I've poo-pooed on this game, because simply the way I did it was I was just trying to complete it as quick as I can, not understanding all the nuances about this game and how the mechanics actually work, which a lot of you pointed out, and I'll accept that and put my hands onto it because I said it was an absolute crap game. Now, rather than retelling the movies beat for beat, the NES game creates like a loose adaptation set at Count Crystal Lake. You take control of 6 counselors, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, and you're attempting to survive multiple days while protecting other campers from Jason Voorhees. Now, Jason appears randomly. Now, that's what I said. He can, but you can work this out. Okay, you can figure out how to kind of work out his quirks and how to beat him. Now, unlike other movie games at the time, which was kind of a linear action sort of thing, Friday the 13th tried to have a bit of a survival horror sort of thing. The game, to be fair, is surprisingly large, and there's camp trails, forest paths, woods, caves, and lakeside areas. You can say it's a bit like a Zelda-like, although people were arguing about this. Each of those 6 playable counselors has different stats. They have speed, jumping ability, and throwing distances. Some are weaker, some are slower, while some are more athletic, making them probably the better character to choose. And aside from fighting Jason, you're also going to be fighting zombies, because why not? Wolves, bats, and other enemies. Whole point is you've got to beat Jason, survive the day, and save all those other campers. Are you going to be able to do it? I don't know. Do I really care? No. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Now, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves was a fantastic movie. God, that was such a good film with Kevin Costner producing one of the best songs ever from Bryan Adams. Oh my God, how good was that song? Now, with this game, instead of merely adapting the movie scene by scene, the game builds a surprisingly large and varied adventure that blends top-down exploration, melee combat, party management, inventory systems, and even multiple gameplay styles. Considering this is an NES title, it was surprisingly deep and offered story-driven moments and open-ended gameplay. Now, the game does follow the plot loosely. Robin escapes imprisonment in the Crusader Kingdom, returns to England, and discovers his home's been destroyed by the Sharing of Nottingham. And then he has to assemble a band of allies in Sherwood Forest. I've been to Nottingham and I've seen Sherwood Forest. It's not as exciting as you're thinking. And most of the world takes place in an overhead perspective where Robin freely moves through towns, forests, castles, swamps and campsites, and players can explore a sizable world filled with items, NPCs, secret paths and enemy ambushes. Robin himself can talk to civilians, recruit allies, collect weapons and open treasure chests to progress. The world is far more open than the movie itself, encouraging players to revisit previous locations as your party grows stronger. Combat, though, happens in real time in that same overhead view. Robin and his allies swing weapons such as swords, daggers, staffs, and bows, while enemies charge in multiple angles. The combat can feel a bit chaotic and fast-paced, with the player having to manage their positioning, avoiding large groups of foes, and switching weapons when needed. Defeated enemies drop items including health food and equipment upgrades, because that happens in real life. What makes this game particularly distinctive is the use of different gameplay styles throughout the adventure. There's the duel mode, which is one-on-one. Against major bosses or enemies, it basically has a side-by-side one-on-one perspective. Players trade blows, block and time strikes, making these feel really dramatic. Then you've got the side view escape action sequences, where they basically during the prison escape, Robin's got to dodge guards and obstacles. And then the large-scale battle mode. One of the most surprising features is where Robin and his whole band of merry men clash into battle. It's like an RTS game. Awesome! Mass blood everywhere! Gotta be honest, to put that much effort into a movie game? fair play, I'm with it. Jaws. Now, Jaws has a big reputation, and it was published by LJN. Hang on here, LJN usually have that caveat of being absolutely terrible with video games, but I think this one can kind of get overlooked a little bit. It's an unusual game, based loosely on the Jaws film series, primarily Jaws the Revenge. While the game is remembered for its simplicity and repetition, it's also strangely atmospheric because it blends overworld sailing, underwater combat, resource collecting, and then eventually a climactic final showdown with the giant shark itself. It has a blend of arcade-style mechanics and light RPG elements, makes it stand out from typical movie-based NES games at the time. You control a small boat sailing across the ocean map, travelling between the ports and fighting sea creatures, collecting upgrades, and eventually gaining the firepower to fight Jaws himself. The story is very sparse, but it effectively sets the tone of a lone sailor preparing for a deadly encounter, which is actually pretty cool. You steer your boat around reefs and deep sea areas, ports and special event locations, and the random encounters occur frequently, similar to JRPGs, where your boat suddenly hits something and the perspective switches to underwater action. Here, the main character becomes a diver, and you've got to battle jellyfish, stingrays, small sharks, and various ocean creatures while collecting shells and power-ups. The movement is slow and floaty while he's diving. It's not going to be quick like Final Fantasy style, is it? Now, at some point in the game, once you reach a certain power level, Jaws actually starts making an appearance. Now, at first he's invincible, requiring many direct hits to do even the slightest scratch to him. But as you start upgrading your power level in the ports, your attacks become more effective. The battles with Jaws themselves are tense and require that constant movement to avoid being rammed, because it's Jaws. He'd annihilate you. I think this is quite cool because you never know when he's going to appear. Now, after you've weakened Jaws enough in underwater combat, the game transitions to a dramatic first-person harpoon scene, where you're on the boat and you basically got to hit him right in the face with the harpoon. The final shot requires precision, but it's so satisfying when you actually get it. However, if you miss, you're going to have to try again until he's defeated. And I think this itself sets Jaws apart, because it has that unique cinematic finish of, I've just discovered how to destroy this badass thing. A lot of players are going to criticise the fact of a lot of repetition, the fact that the underwater combat feels slow and there's a lot of grinding involved. But I think this is a trade-off we can all accept. When you actually do beat Jaws, it's so cinematic and so worthwhile. It's like, yeah, I'll take that because I got to beat the badass shark that's been killing everybody. Willow. Now, this was developed by Capcom in 1989, which is quite amazing that Capcom decided to do this. Loosely adapted from Ron Howard's fantasy film starring Warwick Davis and Val Kilmer, the game transforms the movie's world into a sprawling Zelda-like adventure filled with exploration, leveling, magic, dungeons, and story-driven quests. Now, rather than basically retell the story again, Capcom decided to expand the interpretation of Willow's journey, building a deeper world, adding more characters, and designing richly detailed environments that weren't possible in the film alone. And bear in mind, I love the film. Scared to death by the scene where all the humans turned to piggies, that had me running around the couch, I swear to God, when everyone started going, I was panicking. Now, the world of Willow is navigated from a colourful overhead perspectives. Players can explore forests, mountains, swamps, snowy fields, and labyrinth-like dungeons, each with unique layouts and enemy types. The areas feel interconnected, encouraging backtracking once new spells or items have been obtained. Now, looking at this video, I don't know what 100% you're going to say. There's a theme of Legend of Zelda. There is. There's definitely an influence here. Willow does feature real-time combat and has their exploration similar to the Zelda game. Unlike The Legend of Zelda, as Willow gains experience, his HP and attack power increase significantly, making that leveling essential. Willow also has the ability to learn spells throughout the journey: healing, fire magic, transformation, shielding, and more. And this requires MP, which wasn't in the original Zelda game. So yes, level so you can get more MP. Apart from that, it just screams Zelda. I don't know whether I can say any more than that. Either way, it's a challenging game, probably more so than the original Legend of Zelda. Early enemies hit hard and leveling is slow, and dungeons can be grueling without any preparation. Bosses have that demand that you expect from a boss, and often require understanding their patterns and proper spell use. The game does expect players to explore thoroughly though, talking to all the NPCs and grind when absolutely necessary. Despite the difficulty, many players appreciated the game's steady sense of growth. Every level or new spell felt meaningful, and mastering the combat gives a powerful sense of accomplishment. Again, this has been overshadowed by The Legend of Zelda, which the influence is definitely there, but Willow is remembered as a hidden gem. It's challenging, atmospheric, and far more ambitious than most NES adaptations of the time. The Untouchables. Now, many of you may not have seen the 1987 film, The Untouchables. I have, and my father-in-law made me watch it. He was like, you need to see this film, you need to see this film, you need this film. Oh my god, okay, he will go on about it, and kept making me watch it, because this is about Elliot Ness's crusade against Al Capone during the Prohibition era, which I learnt in when I was in school. Now, rather than retelling the story through cutscenes or dialogue, the game translates key moments through a series of tightly focused action stages. Each level uses a different gameplay format, making the game feel like a collection of mini-games built around the film's most famous sequences. Although ambitious in its design, this variety leads to uneven difficulty and control issues, giving the game a reputation of being tough, sometimes frustrating, but also memorable in its attempts to actually capture the cinema in 8-bit form. These gameplay styles can be side-scrolling shooting, first-person gallery shooting, and even precision jumping were all part of the experience. As a result of all these different gameplay styles, it really has a feel of being very fragmented, but cinematic structure, with each stage acting as a set piece rather than a continuous narrative journey. One of the most famous sequences from The Untouchables is the film's train station shootout with the baby carriage. The NES game doesn't fully replicate the scene, but does recreate the iconic bridge moment where Ness and his partner must capture a key informant. The level focuses on quick movements, timed actions, and hitting the enemies while avoiding crossfire. It's a mixture of platforming and shooting, and like much of the game, it's punishing because of the enemy placement and limited health. Nearly every stage in the game features a strict time limit. Whether you're chasing a suspect or clearing an area, the game forces you to move quickly, making exploration or slow, careful play impossible. Combined with the game's generally tough enemy patterns, scarce health pickups, and unforgiving collision detection, the overall experience becomes extremely challenging. Some levels require near perfect execution, and failure often means starting the sequence all over again, which is just lovely. But the developers Ocean should be remembered that they tried to translate a gritty adult crime film into an NES-friendly action experience, which is no easy task at all. They gotta say, this game had ambition, and it tried, it had the atmosphere, it had the variety, and despite its difficulty, many retro gamers appreciate how different it feels from typical licensed games of the era. Its set-piece design mirrors the film's most dramatic moments and gives the player a sense of participating in key scenes, even if they are simplified and heavily gamified. Robocop. Robocop is an action platformer developed by Data East and licensed by Ocean Software, where they're attempting to adapt the iconic 1987 sci-fi action film. The game attempts to recreate the movie's gritty tone, dystopian atmosphere, and mechanical hero while fitting the experience into a fast-paced NES gameplay. Although it is simplified and a more family-friendly version compared to the film, it captures the feeling of being Robocop, slow and powerful, while guiding players through several linear action stages filled with criminals, machinery, and OCP corruption. Because of its unmistakable robotic movements, memorable music, and arcade-like pacing, Robocop stands out as one of the most faithful NES movie tie-ins in the late 80s. Robocop moves deliberately and slowly, reflecting his massive armoured frame. Unlike typical NES heroes who jump freely and dash around, Robocop can't jump at all, and his movements are intentionally stiff. This design choice is sometimes criticised, but also praised for matching his on-screen persona. His default punch attack is strong, but requires getting dangerously close to enemies, making weapon pickups crucial for survival. When the Auto 9 pistol or other guns are equipped, Robocop can fire rapidly in a straight line, taking down enemies from a safer distance. Now, whilst Robocop does have the standard pistol, there are better weapons like a machine gun, but the ammo is limited, so players have got to decide when to shoot and when to conserve bullets for tougher encounters. This resource pressure adds a strategic layer, emphasising Robocop's role as a disciplined and calculated enforcer rather than a run-and-gun superhero. Each level is governed by a strict time limit, forcing players to keep moving as best you can. This design choice pushes players to maintain momentum, which means you can't just go around punching enemies or waiting for the perfect shot, you've got to get moving. Visually, Robocop is one of the most atmospheric NES games. The urban backgrounds, dim streets, industrial areas, and crumbling buildings evoke the decayed Detroit of the film. Robocop's sprite is detailed and with its iconic silver-blue armour clearly recognisable. Now, a lot of people are going to criticise this game's difficulty because of Robocop's restricted movements, but some are going to argue that this enhances the experience, making Robocop feel authentic. And although the NES version cannot replicate the violence and brutality of the film, it maintains a dystopian tone through its level design, enemy types, and somber soundtrack. The developer's adherence to the mechanical feel of the character make it unique among NES action games, and its combination of shooting, punching, and bonus stages give it a pacing that still feels satisfying today. The new Ghostbusters 2. Now, the new Ghostbusters 2 is a Japan-only action game developed by HAL Laboratory and released in 1990. Despite sharing the Ghostbusters 2 name, it is completely unrelated to the poorly received Western Ghostbusters 2 NES game by Activision. This is considered the definitive Ghostbusters experience on the system, offering polished gameplay, strong presentation, and the faithful use of the license. The game is a top-down action-adventure reminiscent of Legend of Zelda. Players control one of the Ghostbusters, Peter, Ray, Egon, or Winston, each functionally identical as they explore haunted locations across New York City. The goal is to clear buildings of ghosts, rescue trapped civilians, and ultimately stop a massive supernatural threat, Vigo, overtaking the city. The levels are maze-like indoor environments filled with ghosts, traps, and destructible objects. The proton pack, as you expect, is your primary weapon, allowing you to stun and capture ghosts, and it's quite satisfying and responsive. Between each mission, you can upgrade your equipment such as your proton streams, your traps, and your movement speed, adding a light RPG element style progression. One of the game's standout features is the two-player cooperative gameplay, allowing a second Ghostbuster to join at the time. And this makes it more tactical and significantly reduces the game's difficulty, which can otherwise be punishing when playing solo. The enemy placement, the ambushes, and limited health create a tense experience that rewards careful movement and teamwork. The graphics are really colourful and detailed for an NES title with expressive sprites and varied environments. It's absolutely ridiculous when you compare it to the other two Ghostbusters games, which just absolutely poo-pooed on the license. It's like they got it and went, how much of a big shit can we take on it? Like, this game is really good. The graphics are great, the sprites are awesome, it actually plays really well, it's got tight controls, clever co-op design, actually authentic ghostbusting which makes you feel like you're actually one of the Ghostbusters. That's really good! Although playing it solo, yeah, you're gonna get absolutely screwed. But yeah, do not even bother playing the other two Ghostbusters games unless you're doing it for a podcast where you have to review the great and the poo games. So no doubt we'll have to do all three at some point. But either way, this is probably one of the best movie games on the system. It's just a shame it's only on the Famicom. And finally, Mad Max. Now, Mad Max was developed by Mindscape in 1990 and is an action-orientated, top-down, vehicular? That's a big word that I've struggled to say. Combat game that loosely adapts the post-apocalyptic world of the 1979 film. Now, unlike many NES adaptations, this game focuses on driving and car combat rather than on foot action. Turn the player into a titular road warrior navigating a wasteland filled with enemy vehicles, hazards, and scarce resources. While the game struggles with repetitive mechanics and simplistic visuals, it does evoke the desperate, lawless tone of the Mad Max universe, but I have to admit I'm not big on Mad Max. I've not seen the original film, so I can't sit there and go, I know everything about Mad Max. I have seen the one with, what's his name, Tom Hardy, I have seen that one. The game casts players as Max wandering around desolate wasteland after the collapse of civilization. Now, rather than going after the film strictly, it recreates the world's atmosphere, these barren highways, ruined towns, and hostile gangs that attack anyone travelling alone. Players must traverse these dangerous roads while managing their fuel, ammo, and health, reflecting the harsh survivalist themes in the movie. The story's pretty minimal, mostly conveyed through brief text scenes, but the bleak world design is effective in establishing the tension and isolation. Now, the gameplay takes place from a top-down perspective, where the player drives around Max's iconic black V8 Interceptor. The vehicle can move in all sorts of directions, fire forward, and occasionally use other weapons such as grenades and rockets. The combat does feel fast-paced for the NES and does require players to anticipate enemy patterns. Some enemies attempt to corner or swarm Max, forcing precise steering and timing. The game also has environmental hazards like oil slicks, destroyed roadways, and obstacles, further testing the player's reflexes. In addition, as I said earlier, you have to manage the fuel and health. Gas stations appear intermittently, although how the hell they're even functioning back then, allowing Max to refuel and repair damage. Ammo is limited, making every shot count. The need to conserve the fuel and supplies adds that strategic layer like other games have, turning what could have been a mindless driving game into a tense survival simulation. The game does consist of multiple stages, each representing different wasteland regions of encounters inspired by the film's chaotic highways. Some levels focus on survival driving, while avoiding damage is the main goal, while others involve chasing enemy convoys, destroying the gang leaders, or protecting innocent survivors. This does allow it to have some gameplay that makes it feel a bit fresh rather than just the same thing over and over again. Now, due to the NES's limited hardware, you can't go full, apocalyptic visuals, but having muted desert-inspired palettes does convey the wasteland quite well, so technically this game can handle it, because you can just have muted colours and go, hey, deserts, it's fine. Mad Max is remembered for its high difficulty. There are a lot of enemies and they are extremely aggressive, and collisions often result in heavy damage, and that fuel limitations, well, it's a bit of a pain in the arse. The top-down driving can feel awkward due to the tight spaces and constant attacks, especially for players not accustomed to NES car games. I was going to say peculiar again, but we're not going down that route. Despite these challenges, the game does reward skillful navigation, the precise shooting, and strategic resource management, giving a bit of a sense of mastery once players learn the pattern. And although this game isn't as well known as other NES movie adaptations, it does give it a go and actually tries to faithfully recreate the film's tone in an 8-bit format, and its challenging gameplay and atmospheric presentation make it a distinctive entry in the NES licensed titles. And that's it! 10 NES movie games are the ones I need to talk about. I know there are plenty, but let me know which ones I should be talking about next. I'll see you all in a few days for another video, and as I said, if you like this video, please give it a like as it really helps the channel grow. And I'll see you all soon. Take care of yourself. My name's been Danny. Bye bye.